Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to my guest on the Empowered Woman podcast. I want to thank you for joining us today, for taking out some time and choosing us. You have a million podcasts you could be listening to, but you chose us today. So we super appreciate you for that. And I just want to thank you for rocking with us so far. I'm having a blast going with this video thing. We've done a few so far, so playing around with different things, and we're going to figure it out. But today, I have a super special guest. So far, I know we usually have ladies on this podcast, but I wanted to introduce you today to Milan. He has a powerful and inspirational story, and his heart is to empower women. So Milan, why don't you share with us who you are, what you do?
Well, thanks for that brief but concise intro. I am Lord Milan officially, which is a long, cool, weird Disney story of how I got that title. And like you said, my one of my big goals, my introduction into the whole entrepreneur game was to specifically empower women with my clothing brand. There's 1,000 brands out there for 1,000 reasons, but which one of those are actually geared towards encouragement? And that's really what we made our motto for the brand, was encouragement and style. It really started off as the thank you to the amazing women that have been in my life, whether they were inspiring me or just telling me what to do. My life was better because of that. And DDH was founded because of that. Even the name DDH stands for Doña Design House, and Doña is really the Spanish word for a female leader. The woman that you just don't mess with, like, hey, like, don't mess with Doña Maria, like, she'll smack you, kind of thing. But yeah, just a way to just give back and thank you. And now that I'm married and I have daughters, it's something that I can share with them, that we've all been in the place where clothing really affects how we feel and how we see ourselves, and having things that are empowering and geared towards your upliftment, I think goes a long way.
Totally agree with that. I absolutely love that. And you're right. I mean, I think it's for men and women, but I think especially for women, what we wear makes a huge impact on how we feel and how we show up to the world every day.
Yeah. And something that I've learned too in these last couple of years especially is that feelings and emotions are not inconvenient, that they're actually helpful, and they're like a really good guide to who you are and where you're going.
Yeah, for sure. I think once we learn how to get in tune with our emotions, we actually can figure out which way to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll be taking us 50 different directions because we don't know what the heck's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So we were talking a few days ago. We got on and just kind of talked a little bit about what we might make today's topic be.
Yeah.
And you came up with a brilliant one, and I am stoked to get into this because we could go real deep. So today's topic is scary and excited is the sweet spot for creation.
Absolutely.
And I think that's just a fire statement.
It is. Yeah. And it's something that I noticed, it's like once you start really betting on yourself and going against the outline of the average plan that we were all given, scared starts to show up pretty quickly. And I think it's in one sense it's to protect us. Fear is something that can protect us. And if you're walking at night and there's like a rustle in the bushes, like you're like, let me just stop for a second.
Yeah.
And assess this thing. But nowadays, like, it's usually not that serious. It's usually not the like life or death. Like, oh no, there's a bear over there gonna come get me. It's usually just like, what are other people going to think? And, do I have what it takes to get what I really want? And, facing that. And I noticed that when it's the things that you actually really desire, like I didn't know what I was doing when I started my first company. I just had the idea like, oh, this would be exciting. And, I was in design school at the time, and, you're making all these designs, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm creative and I'm doing this. But then when it comes down to like LLC paperwork and all right, now you're putting your money where your mouth is, it's like, all right, now the scare kicks in.
Oh, this is real. You're like, oh, this is real. Oh boy,
How's
what
it
did I
real?
do?
And it's like, I'm betting on myself here. But I realize that that's the great place to be. Like I'm a little bit scared, but that lets me know that too, that it matters to me.
Yeah.
It matters, and I'm still excited, and I just want to do this thing. And I think scary just comes along with it. But knowing that, then you're just like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like this is the normal part. Scary and excited is the normal part.
Well, yeah, and we've been taught since we were kids, right? You stay away from the things you're afraid of,
Yeah.
right? That's how we were brought
Danger,
up.
danger.
Stranger danger, don't, stay away from the bear in the woods kind of mentality. But if you do that, you never grow.
Yeah.
Like ever. You will get stuck standing still. And before you know it, you don't even know who you are anymore.
Right. Yeah, because you're just going off of really the idea of it being bad.
Yeah.
Not that the reality of it being bad, but just the idea of it being bad. And
Mm-hmm.
we all have these ideas in our head that we were given of what life is and what we do and what we don't do, depending on who you are. That could be, oh well, this is not something that women do, or this is not something that black people do. It's like, well, who's deciding these rules here?
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because this one does. I do
Right.
that. Yeah.
And then you start to question yourself. Well, then if it's not what we do, then why do I have this desire?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that, and I love that I did my master's in linguistics because it really allowed me to examine the words that I use, and just to know that if I have the desire, it means that it's worthwhile, because
Mm-hmm.
desire means of the Father. And I'm a firm believer that the Bible's a practical manual. And it's like, well, if the creator of life itself gave me this idea, it can't just be just a lofty imagination. Like it has to be something that's worthwhile, or else, like, why would I even have the idea?
Well, hands down. I mean, and the Bible says that God will give you the desires of your heart. And if your
Right.
heart is aligned with God and what he has planned for you, then those desires are of God.
Yeah. And it says that like the righteous will flourish like the palm tree. I'm like, well, what does righteous mean then? And righteous, it turns out, means just those that believe that the moves that they're going to make, the ideas that they have, are right and true. I'm like, all right, well, if I believe it's right and true, and this technically was the idea itself was a gift, that would be wrong of me not to accept it and move forward.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, even though I'm scared, but I'm also excited, let's do this thing. And I've seen it work out for me so many times,
Yeah.
big and small. And it's really, I remember when I wasn't scared when I proposed to my wife, well, then girlfriend, but like the idea of like, all right, well, I'm about to be an insta dad because she's a single mom. Like that part I noticed specifically when we were at church, like, oh, because you're accepting this role, then you can't, like, fear can't be a reason for you not to do something.
Right.
Like they're looking now, you're the example now, ready, set, go.
Ready,
So,
set,
all
go.
right, well, but I'm glad I was sensitive enough in my spirit, in my voice, that voice within, to hear that and to know that, like, okay, here's a marker of that life you chose here, guy. You decided to go down this path. Here's what comes with it. But to know that, like, scared, okay, it's something that I want to do. Obviously, I want to be with her, and part of being with her is, raising these kids together.
Mm-hmm.
And just like having that be like, okay, I feel that fear. Okay, fine. But really, I've grown to look at fear too as just like a marker of, hey, this is a moment that you need to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? Because if it's the other way, then you got to call it. You got to call it now. Don't go down this path, because it's just going to get harder and harder. If this is not what you're agreeing to. And I heard it recently too. I've heard it. Have you heard it? The acronym for fear as false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
I heard it recently, and I thought that one was pretty good. But I heard it recently that finally escaping average reality.
Ooh.
And I was like, I like that one.
Oh, I
I
love
like
that
that one.
one.
It's like, okay, this is intense and it's scary, and it's different, it's new, but it's my opportunity to finally escape average, and
Oh
by
my
going
gosh.
forward, I'm finally escaping my average reality and just like, okay, if I keep doing that, the next fear, then I'm escaping even more. And then like next thing you know, you're in the 1%.
The 1%. I mean, if you don't want to live an average life, you have to do everything afraid.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
The last year of my life, I've done so many new things, and I was scared to death to do all of them.
Right.
All of them. A year ago, I didn't even have an Instagram account. Like this December of 21, didn't even have an Instagram account. And I had to start getting on camera because God gave me a gift that he wanted me to share with the world. And nobody's going to get it if you keep it to yourself.
No.
Right? I mean, what if Joseph kept all his gifts to himself?
What if anybody did? I mean, somebody else invented Wi-Fi. Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Right? Thanks for not keeping that one to yourself. But pushing through every single thing afraid, yeah, it is really uncomfortable at the time.
Right.
It's uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it hurts or whatever, but it's uncomfortable. And no, you're not good when you start something new. Nope. But you have to embrace the suckage if you want to do it.
I love that you said that, embrace the suck, because that's what my Marine Corps dad brought us up saying. Like, that's a Marine Corps saying, is like, embrace the suck.
That's
like,
it.
Okay, I get it. I'm clear that this sucks.
Yeah.
However, I'm still doing it.
I'm still doing it. I mean, you look at all the motivational speakers and all the great ones, right, that you've seen. Do you think they were that great the first time they got on stage?
No.
Nope.
No.
They were reading their script, right?
Right.
They were reading their PowerPoint.
They were saying like 30 times.
Yeah. It comes with, you got to put the reps in, and you're going to be nervous and you're going to be afraid and you're going to be uncomfortable when you first start putting those reps in.
Yeah. My mentor, I was talking to him the other day, and he said that, a lot of people are just looking for confidence. Like, they're looking for confidence. He's like, but you should be looking for experience. Yeah. He's like, because the confidence comes with the doing. Just do the thing and the confidence will just show up by default. He's like, all you need is like the resume of like, oh, look what all of I did. That will give you the confidence you're looking for. Confidence doesn't just show up on its own. It's not its own thing. It's attached to evidence, and evidence is attached to doing. Like, you have to just do the thing.
You know what else is attached to doing the thing? Motivation.
Yeah.
We think of it the other way around, right? No, I got to find something that's going to motivate me to go to the gym. Nothing's going to motivate you to go to the gym. Nothing's going to motivate you to eat right.
No, I love it when people say like, I don't feel motivated, or ask me, how do you stay motivated? I'm like, I don't.
No, I actually just do things.
Right.
And then I see some results, and that's what motivates me.
And really too, because motivation is a word that's just thrown around a lot. You just hear it a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, what's the etymology with motivation? What does it actually mean? And it turns out even motivation is a two-part word that means a reason to act. So motivation is not even about your feelings. Like, if I worked out when I felt like it, I would never work out. Like,
ever.
If I did like the paperwork for my businesses when I felt like it, I would be late every time. Yeah. Like, my motivation is really based on my reasons. What are the reasons you're doing this? Yeah. Like, what are the reasons you're married to this person? What are the reasons that you're starting this endeavor? Yeah. Like, for me, like, what are the reasons you're still going to PT, even though for, like a decade, there was basically no results? Yeah. Well, because in my mind, I'm walking again. Yeah. Like,
so let's tell people I'd love for you to share with people a little bit of your story.
When I was just before I was 17, I'm my first time at a lake in Michigan. I dove off a boat dock and broke my neck. And obviously that was a surprise to me. Oh, yeah. I dove in. I had been swimming in oceans and all this stuff my whole life, and never thought that, oh yeah, I'm going to dive in and then change my entire trajectory. But yeah, dove in, broke my neck, ripped my right shoulder out of socket. thankfully I was a big athlete at the time, so like that muscle mass just saved me from just snapping it completely.
Mhm.
But even still, like the doctors gave me the diagnosis of you'll never have any feeling or movement below your collarbone. And I didn't know it at the time, but they had even told my parents, you should just send him off and to live somewhere because it's just going to be too painful to watch your son never progress. And I'm
Wow.
like, whoa, people still do that? They just like send their kid off?
Wow.
And obviously they didn't do that. They're like, no, that's not who we are. We're
Yeah.
not just gonna send our kid off to some institution or something. Um, but yeah, like my visceral reaction then was F that, I have stuff to do. And my mom's like, don't cuss at the doctor. I'm like, this is the perfect time to cuss at the doctor, mom. Like, I'm not even cursing at the doctor, I'm cursing at the diagnosis, essentially.
Mhm.
I have to just like utterly refuse this reality.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like the teenage stubbornness or whatever, but I just, the visceral reaction of just like no, like no. And then it's like, all right, well, now that I refuse that, so now what? And thankfully, that's when like knowledge and wisdom kicked in. I'm like, all right, well, I believe that God can heal. I haven't really been like the best Christian or anything, but I believe that there's a thing out there. There's a thing within me that can do something about it. And in about a week after the injury, I woke up in the middle of the night to Jesus sitting on the end of my bed. And in my mind, Satan sitting next to him with his back turned, like, you can be here, but you can't talk. And Jesus was like, hey, so heard you got hurt. I heard you're in a spot. I was like, yeah, I am. I'm listening. And he really gave me two choices. He's like, you can go down that path you were going, which, selling drugs and stealing cars and doing all these, embracing all these negative stereotypes. And then showed me my death at 25. Like, let me feel the gunshots and everything. And I'm
Mm.
just like, yeah, so what's up with door number two? He's like, all right. So door number two, you can follow me and just keep in mind that your thoughts, words, and actions will be the catalyst for everything. And that even now in this moment, they add up. And I'm just like, okay. I
That's
had
so
no idea what
powerful.
that meant, but like I was like, okay. And I couldn't really act very much because I couldn't feel or move anything. But as soon as like the next day I woke up and I could feel head to toe. And I'm like, huh. And the doctors were like, like, oh, it's just phantom, you don't know. It's just like the idea of it. And they were doing all these tests. They like pricked me with, needles or drop ice in my bed. And I'm like, I can't move, but I can feel. Can you stop doing that? And it just progressed from there. And it's like my thoughts and my words just started to develop a whole new world. And bit by bit, things that are coming back. And then one day I just like picked my arms up and they're just like, huh. And then started pushing a manual chair around, and then like got out the hospital 4 months later and kept going. And now it took me 18 years of trying and believing and effort, but 18 years later I started walking, and now I'm walking a lot easier. At first it started looking like a newborn baby deer, like you're like like kind of all over
Yeah.
the place. But I never accepted the idea of anything else, and just like kept going and kept believing and used my thoughts and words to create a whole new world that with my businesses, with growth, with travel, with school, and everything that I did between 17 and now 39. I was scared but also excited. I was scared and excited when I approached the guys that would become my fraternity brothers. Like, I was scared and excited to have a fashion degree, as a straight man. Like, I was scared and excited to travel on my own, but like, I fell on my face a few times. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
but now I have like these amazing memories of, and the knowledge that I can bring to my kids. That scared is not a good enough reason to not do it. It's just not.
It's not.
And that was one of the things that I was just concerned about too. Of I always saw myself as a father, and I know that hey, the first few years it's all hands on deck, like
Yeah.
changing diapers and caring for this and like giving my wife the respite, from like just birthing a child, you know, but like physically, I was concerned about it. Like, how safe is this to be left alone with a newborn?
Sure.
Or even a toddler. Like, hey, this kid runs around and like gets stuck somewhere. Like, can I help him?
Sure.
Um, so I let God know, like, hey, like, I'm down to be a dad here. I would really prefer not to have to, change diapers and stuff though. Like if I can get some like pre-potty trained kids, that'd be amazing.
Pre-potty training.
And then, lo and behold, the way things worked out is yeah, I married a single mom with 13-year-olds. And I was like, oh, well, that worked out.
Okay. All right. See, God, you had this all planned out anyways.
Right. So I was like, okay, cool. And I the value that I could give to that situation was so much better. Because I'm like, oh, well, I can teach them how to be great people. I can teach them about money and faith, and I can teach them that scared and excited is the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be a tangible example, like, oh, look, my stepdad now, or my dad is in a wheelchair, but he's still accomplishing great things.
Sure.
So like, I don't have any excuses.
Sure.
Which is great, and they still don't listen because they're kids, but
they're teenagers. They're
there's
teenagers.
that.
Yeah, they're teenage girls. Yeah, but dude, it is so inspiring to me. Just you hear the scripture that no faithfulness goes unrewarded, but when you can actually see that in an individual, 18 years of faithfulness, 18 years of believing that God was going to do it for you.
Yeah.
18 years.
Which was longer than I had experienced before. Like I only had 17 years of walking. Then it was like 18 years of not. And I'm just like, I'm down for this walking thing still.
I'm still down for it, God. I'm ready when you are. I'm ready to receive it whenever you want to give it back to me, right?
Yeah.
My favorite scripture is Jeremiah 29, that I don't remember the exact words, but he knows he has plans for you, right? And they're plans to flourish you and give you the life you desire and the future you hope for, and plans not to harm you.
Yeah.
And I just see it time and time again in the testimonies I hear of people who are obedient and faithful. God will give you the future that you hope for.
Yeah. And I realized that like the more I live on purpose, because people ask, I think that's one of the biggest questions that people have is like, what's the purpose? What's my purpose? And I think all of our purpose is to live on purpose. Like, listen to yourself, listen to that voice, do the things that you love, like follow your desires, live on purpose. Like, even if you're going to like, oh, I'm going to, drink today. Well, at least do it on purpose.
At least do it on purpose, right?
Like, know what you're doing here.
Yeah. Don't let somebody slip something in your drink. If you're going to drink today, just drink on purpose, right?
Right. Just do it on purpose. Like if you want to be, a parent, be a parent on purpose. You want to get married on purpose. You want to start your business on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I think the more purpose you have, the more trust you have in yourself. Because or else your life ends up being random. And you're like, you're stuck asking yourself, like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't see this coming. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. What was I thinking? Mm-hmm. Exactly. What were you thinking?
Yeah. I mean, what were you thinking, right? And that's kind of an example of being a little bit scatterbrained, right? Because you're not living on purpose. You're just living life day by day as it comes at you. And if something good happens, cool. If not, oh well, right? I'll start over again tomorrow. That is such a common mindset. And it really stems from not having any visibility or vision of the future and where you want to go and where you want to be. I put a post out on social media the other day that was, where would you be if you decided to bet on yourself a year ago today?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, the comments and the conversations that I was having from that one post, I'm actually going to launch a workshop on this. It is just so clear to me that we as a human race, right, just generally speaking, we are not envisioning what our future looks like. We don't even know where we're going. We don't even know where we want to go.
Yeah. And that's why, like I used to hear statistics like, oh, it's like 5% of the people have the most power and money. And 95% of the people are kind of just around. And I used to think like that sounds ridiculous, but now that I'm thinking about it where I am, I'm just like, that seems pretty true.
Yeah.
Because most of the people that I know are not even adults, they're just old kids.
Hmm.
Like you're not thinking ahead, you have no real goals, you're not passionate about stuff, you're not living on purpose, you're letting the fear and the idea of failure keep you from even trying.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about like my situation, because like God revealed to me, he's like, I made you a spectacle for a reason. And I elongated this road in between like breaking your neck and walking for a reason, so that so many eyes would be on you, so that it would be so obvious about other people for what they could do. Like use your thoughts and words, know that God is within you, know that impossible is just a choice,
Hmm.
know that you can do it no matter what. Because like when I started to add up, and I was talking to my dad about it, he's like, if you just add up your accomplishments up to this point, you're in the like 0.0000001%.
Hmm.
Like you're a biracial kid from the South with a master's degree
Hmm.
in a foreign language, in
Hmm.
a wheelchair, and a business owner, and a husband, and a father. And like you start adding this up, dude,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like you're a lot of people are looking at you. I'm just like, true. And
True.
like the more eyes that are on me, now God said, like, okay, you're gonna walk on Tuesday, but I don't know what Tuesday. Like, all right, well, it's Tuesday again. Like, what's up? I'm feeling it. I'm
All
feeling
right,
it.
God, I'm feeling it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's so powerful. And none of us celebrate our accomplishments the way we should.
No.
We don't. And that's actually, I think, probably the starting point of growth and figuring out where you want to go, because you got to know that you have the power to do it. You got to know and really, like, really know all the things that you've overcome in your life, all the obstacles, all the challenges, the accomplishments, all the accolades, right? I mean, when I started working with a coach, one of the things he had me do, right, was go back and reflect and write down everything I've went through in my life, everything I've overcome, all of my accomplishments. And when he read it, he was like, so you missed a really important accomplishment. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're already the 1%. What are you talking about? He said, you are a 40-year-old female that makes over six figures and you never had a day in college. Do you know the median income of a 40-year-old female? It's like 42 grand
Yeah.
with a college degree. And it blew my mind, and it really taught me to look at things differently, like to really look at myself differently so that I could know what I was capable of. And until I started doing that, I didn't really start doing things afraid, because the fear is too overwhelming. If you don't, it's one of my favorite things to say. If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're probably never going to get started.
Yeah.
And even if you try, like, you're already done before you started.
Which is just proof that the opinion and belief that you have about yourself outweighs everything.
It outweighs everything.
It outweighs everything. And I always tell people that, like, tell yourself a story that you want to hear. Tell yourself a story that you want to hear, and a lot of the times, something that I've really gained for myself, and I'm really thankful for the injury, because it gave me a lot of downtime. Like that first few years, especially, it's like, all right, well, what's rattling around up in here? What's the story I've been playing out? And I was like, oh, well, most of that story was just BS. And like, no wonder I was sad and angry and, distrustful and all this other stuff. And I just started telling myself a different story, not denying the truth or anything, but just a different version of it in my head.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of us, live off of the I would and I could and if and all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it would be nice to do this. I'm like, well, what if you change it to I'm in love with the idea of doing this? Now it's personal. Now it's idea. Now, I can't do this, or I'm waiting for somebody else to solve the issue for me. Like, what if you just stay in love with the idea? Then you allow yourself to actually come up with solutions and be open to that as a possibility in your life.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, oh yeah, like, it would be nice to win the lottery.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, what about this? Like, I'm in love with the idea of being really rich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's figure out like a legit way to get there instead of throwing your money away on the lottery and just, living life on chance.
Right. And that's something too, Einstein said coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, once these, good breaks start to happen, if you stop looking at them as random and start to look at them as like, oh, well, my imagination and my desire helped to produce this in my life. Now you start to look at like, okay, now I'm a real player in my story. Like now I'm player one. I'm not just, I'm not just one of the scenery background characters.
Yeah.
And talking about social media, I love that, we can really curate our social media to whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things that you like and things that you comment, the things that you click on and follow, you can just curate your entire world.
You can.
And I curated mine to like something great, and I just decided that my social media would be about what I can give and how valuable I can be to other people based on what I've learned up to this point. And since I started operating that way, like the scripture says, the blessings just chase you down.
They do.
And I tell my clients that once you start to live on purpose, like you start fulfilling scripture by default, because like your entire life is just God's idea played out through you.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I had this good idea, talk about plans. I had this good idea named Marilyn that does this and does that and realizes this and overcomes that and has this child and has this husband and goes here and inspires these people. Like God had this great idea that he's expressing through you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, well then you owe me.
Yeah.
You owe me. Whatever your good idea is, whatever your great grand and awesome story is, you owe me. Just like I owe you. It's I think it's the difference between being selfish and self-full. But you can be selfish, and I like that ish part because it means kinda. Like I'm kind to me. I'm kind to me, But if you're self-full, then it's like, oh, well, I'm totally being myself. I'm expressing and I'm expanding constantly, just like all other life. I mean, if we look at life outside of humanity, it will be its best, most expressive, most powerful, biggest, progressive self. Like you'll see the grass grow through the concrete. You'll see those damn dandelions pop up again and again.
Yeah, yeah.
Because life itself is progressive. And if we're not, I think that's the time where we can make a difference.
Yeah.
Like I think we discount discomfort. They're like, oh, I'm just uncomfortable. Oh, I just don't like this. But that discomfort, I think, is really a marker to let you know that change is possible and something you should do. Like Justin talks about, where's the pivot?
Where's the pivot?
Like
you gotta be ready to pivot.
Is letting you know that you need to pivot.
You need to pivot and being in tune with yourself and, like you said, self-full, right? One of the things I believe that allows us to do is to actually see the signs and do something about them. Because so often we miss all the signs or we ignore all the signs of what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I definitely, like my life looking back, I can see when I wasn't really living on purpose that the signs were still there. Mm-hmm. I was just actively ignoring them. Yeah.
Yeah, that don't sound easy or fun or
right.
Yeah, I already know how to do this thing over here. I'm just gonna stay over here comfortable. Right?
Yeah.
Do my thing over here. I'm not ready to try something new. Right. And then another month goes by, another 6 months goes by, another year goes by, and you're like, so I'm still miserable, God.
Right.
Yeah, can you send me a new job? Can you send me a new boyfriend? Can you send me a new girlfriend? Right? I'm miserable. Yet for the past year, he's been sending you all the things you needed to do to get the new job, the new boyfriend, the new girlfriend, or be by yourself. Whatever the thing is you're supposed to be or be doing, he's been giving you everything for the last year, and you have been too stupid and too selfish to see it or do anything about it.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me, because I'm planning this mini workshop called 10 Things You Need to Unlearn in order to be successful.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of them is that the big things matter more than the details. You got to unlearn that, because it's the details that make you able to accomplish the big things, that allow you to be ready for the big moment. Like spending time by yourself, taking care of your environment, your thoughts, your own self-love will equip you and match you energetically to the person that you want to be with.
Oh man.
Like it's the details that matter, because there's a lot of like mean time in between these big goals. And if you're just living your life for like high school graduation, college graduation, first kid, getting married, first car, first house, well, what the hell are you doing in between all those moments?
Yeah. There's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years. It's a lot of time in between there.
Years. Yeah.
And if you're just waiting for like the next big thing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna watch 55 episodes of this show on Netflix instead of learning Japanese, because that always seemed interesting to you. And I love it when people say like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, yes you do.
Yes you
do. Because you might not know how to get yourself from A to Z, but you can get yourself from A to C. And then once you're at C, then the idea or the person will come along that'll get you from C to H. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm super strong. Look at all I've done. Then you get yourself from H to L. And you're like, oh, crap, look how far I've come already. And then the next obstacle, the next scary, exciting seems like, oh, that's totally doable.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, my story was so dramatic and tragic at such a young age, because I've done the impossible.
Yeah.
Now the improbable just seems like, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, the likelihood of you doing the improbable is pretty high.
Right. I'm like, oh, I've walked again after I broke my neck.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Like, I've said it so many times, and I've lived my story, but it wasn't until like I was onboarding a new coaching client that I was like, I literally broke my neck and refused to accept the outcome and started walking again. Yeah. And I was like, huh, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is miraculous. It is of God what you accomplished, right? And it's one thing to, right, not accept that you're not going to walk again. Right? Like you said, F that. This isn't happening. This isn't me. I'm not going to live like this. It's another thing to stay so focused and consistent on that for 18 years. Yo, the people who are listening, 18 years.
For one goal.
That's a long freaking time. And we don't even want to stay consistent on something for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, let that sink in.
Or 30 days.
18 freaking years. And we're too impatient to stay consistent on one thing for, like you said, 30 days.
Yeah.
Because we want instant gratification and instant results. And the reality is, like you said before, we all know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But not all of us, and myself included, right? It is actually, I think, kind of rare. It's the 1% that has the mental fortitude to actually continue driving themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said about having an accountability partner, right? Someone who, I mean, they may have some different ideas for you, right? But let's face it, we live in the world of instant information. We all can Google. There's this little thing called Google. You might have heard of it. But we can Google what we're supposed to do next, and we'll get 5 different options. But it's going to take us a heck of a lot longer to get there without having someone who can be an accountability partner and someone who can strategically line those steps up, right? So that you're in chronological order to build one thing after another, after another, after another, and keep your butt in line.
Right. Yeah, because I've heard it said, because my brother's a restaurateur and has owned 9-10 restaurants and sold a bunch, and now he's a food and beverage director at this big company. And talking with him just about the restaurant business, he's like, I started to look at my entire life as cooking. And sometimes cooking is, making something where it's like, oh, I'm mixing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, it turned out really good. He's like, but sometimes life is baking, and you better be precise, and
Oh,
you better know the steps of it, or else those are not going to be brownies.
they're not. They're
That is
gonna be
not
black cookies.
right. It's going to be like this oily mess, or it's going to be burned. Like
Man,
you got to know the difference.
what an
And
analogy.
right. And I'm just like, that's totally true. And going, with the whole, it matters who you partner with, essentially.
It does.
And like having a coach and having people around you that can guide you and say, hey, there's a pothole right there.
Yeah.
Here's how I stepped over it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, then you can move a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it in the background here, but that's why I started Waymakers Global with a handful of people. Because what we do is like, hey, here's how we made a way in all these different avenues of life so that you can move so much faster in the right direction. So that you can be more clear-headed because hey, we failed and fell in this pit. like Joseph, hey, I was in this pit, man. It sucked. Like I was in here and then like with the prison, like don't do that. And I love that about social media now, and it just because you and we've never met in
No.
person, but like we've established this connection because we were brave enough to say yes to ourselves enough
Mm-hmm.
to get us in the circle and to get us around the people that could catapult us forward even more.
That's it.
And I love that too, because like success is just like, it's like, it's like two women talking about making plans because it'll go in every direction. And like knowing that though, we'll be like, oh, it's easier to accept because like the whole like instant gratification thing, it's like, in some ways it's great because like you just expect to win.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways like it's really hindering because it can be discouraging when you don't.
Sure.
And I it cost me like $5,000 to realize this, to learn this skill, but you can create or reduce friction in your life in so many aspects. And like create friction with the things that like, hey, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Like the people that like are not really helping your life out, maybe I'll just delete them from my phone. If they call me and I answer it, okay, fine. But I'm not even going to have their contact info because I know if I can connect with those people, I'm going to be off on a tangent for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Or minimize the friction with stuff that you really want to do.
Yeah.
Like I use my phone and I'll set my phone and say, hey, remind me every day at 11 that I'm God's child and I'm unstoppable. And like every day I get this alert, like, hey, you're God's child and you're unstoppable. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I might not need it that day, but there's going to be days when I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a failure, like everything's wrong, like I'm ugly, like what am I doing? My kids hate me. And then I'll get that alert, like, hey, you're God's child, and to remind me of who I am.
Yeah. I love that. In
And
your
like,
own words, right?
right, be your own hero. And that's what I do with my coaching, and what I've done with myself is I became my own superhero. I stopped waiting for somebody to come and fix my life and to fix me and to give me all the answers. And I was with one of my clients yesterday, and he was, he has this downtime in between. He quit his old job basically
Okay.
to start an entire new career. And that new job starts in a few weeks. And he's like, hey, I have this downtime and I keep asking God, well, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about my future, and that I want to learn Japanese and I want to do this. And I'm thinking, God already told you what to do. Study Japanese, play the piano. Those ideas that you're having, just do them.
Mm-hmm.
Do them.
Yeah.
God's telling you right now, do the thing that you want to do.
They're not just ideas and hunches.
Right. It's
do
like
them.
God doesn't give us good ideas just to make us feel good.
Right. Just do them.
He doesn't tell you to have a clear vision to make you feel good. He does it so that you can have a purposeful life. Because like everything in my life, like to one extent, it's scary and exciting every day because I'm only playing big.
Yeah.
Like I'm betting that A, I'll be worth $400 million by the time I'm 50. B, that my marriage will be freaking fantastic. C, that I'll be running 5Ks, not just walking, but running 5Ks. And D, that my coaching will be able to empower and create 5 million superheroes. Like, that's what I'm playing for.
My God.
That's what I'm playing for. And like, yes, it's like huge, but guess what? It has me to do constantly grow, constantly connect with God, constantly evaluate and notice my decisions.
Yeah.
Like, I'm living on purpose ultimately. And
You've already done the impossible.
right. But that's the thing too. That's already a was.
Right.
So it's like, now what?
Yeah. Yeah. But you've already done the impossible. You have the power to do whatever
Yeah.
you want to do.
Yeah.
We all have the power to do whatever we want to do if we would just get out of our own damn way.
Yes. And I did this workshop like in September, I think, and it was called Built In, and about the three powers that we all have, the superpowers that we all have built in. We just don't know how to use them. And that's your thoughts, your words, and your actions. You can control all three. And as soon as you do in the right direction, it's amazing what will open up. Like, you'll get at the door and it's like, oh, here's that gift that you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, even big and small. Here's that candy bar that you were thinking of. I just wanted to give it to you. Oh, thanks.
All the things you want. You get yourself aligned, all the things you want and all the things you desire are going to flood at you to the point where you're just going to be in awe.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Like, even scripture says, like, open your mouth wide and I will fill it, so that you will be left slack jawed.
Yeah, that's it. And you have not because you ask not.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that.
Come on.
I love that you said that, because the original Hebrew for ask means to claim.
Oh, really?
I think about you have not, because you ask not as like, oh, you didn't ask the question. You didn't ask the right question in the right way. But in Hebrew, they're like, no, it's you didn't claim as yours.
Claim what was already yours.
You didn't claim what was yours. Like, you didn't take ownership of that idea. You didn't take ownership of that skill. You didn't take ownership of that opportunity. We're called to take ownership, to declare and to claim. To declare even means to acknowledge possession of. Like, that's what you should be doing, acknowledging possession of these ideas.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, like, your thoughts and your words. Like, once you can control them and really make these small tweaks about what you say about yourself, oh, then you're unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
Then you can really believe that I am God's child.
Yeah.
I really can do whatever I want. I really am. And, there's so much proof that that's possible.
Yeah.
Because people have been in some really terrible situations and then made themselves into a glorious person.
Yeah.
Like, we all look at Oprah as like, oh, she's Oprah. But there's one time when she was just a poor girl that was abused, living in the projects.
That's it. She came from dirt.
She told herself a different story. She believed something that did not agree with her circumstance.
Yeah.
To the point where it made a difference.
That's it.
Just like, it's like Neo in the Matrix.
Or you can choose to just stay where you are, be average or below average, and live in the mess you're in for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You see it happen all the time, right? Two siblings that grew up in the same house, in the same environment. One is still there, and the other one is a millionaire somewhere, or they travel the world, or they're a basketball star, or they're an actor or an actress, or whatever that thing is, a doctor, a surgeon. They're living the life of their dreams. And it's really all because they made a choice. They chose that. The power to do it is within every single one of us. We have to choose it. Because it ain't easy.
No, and that's the point. When I first got into this world, I had this coach, and she said, "This shit ain't for weenies."
No.
Like it's not. Like, straight up, like,
not
got to.
Not.
And there's a really good book by Jen Sincero called You Are a Badass. And I read that like 9 times.
Yeah.
And it was like really her discovering her own ability.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
she was like, right before I was successful, I was living in a 1-bedroom studio near the beach where I could sit on the toilet and cook at the same time.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was that small.
Yep.
And she's like, now it's like, I travel the world and I work where I want and I empower all these people and I'm
Yep.
making so much money, I can just do whatever I want and
Hmm.
I can give in such a big way, but it's only because she decided to stop playing small.
Yep. She's got a few books in that series. She's got You're a Badass at Making Money. She's got a few
Yeah.
of them. I highly recommend them.
Oh yeah. And that's just, man, I love that my beginnings of being great were all inspired by women.
I love that too.
All of them. Like, yes, I had a great dad, and he's military and he was smart and he protected us and he taught us a lot of great things. However, my aunts, the women in my life, my grandma, were the first people that I saw really playing big and betting on themselves in a scary way. Like my grandma started her own school in the South where you had to extra try when you were black, and extra try if you were black and female.
Mm-hmm.
And she did that, and she was the matriarch of the family, and her success paved the way for so many all of us.
Man, that's so powerful.
And then like to see my mom start her own business, and it was like, okay, well, they're betting on themselves. So when my injury happened, my parents weren't like, oh, woe is you. They're like, you better figure this out.
Yeah, you better get your together.
You better figure it out.
Because you aren't going to be like that. We're not having
still,
this. Yeah.
Right. Like you were 6 months away from going to college, and you're still 6 months away from going to college.
Yeah.
And just I love that, and I put it in my book too, that we all need people around that expect us to win.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right.
Like if you don't have people around you that expect you to win, you need to find different people.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So true. If your circle includes people who are hating on your wins, ditch them. Yes.
Right. Even if they're not hating on your wins, but they just see it as just like something that like, why are you doing that? I don't get it. Like I'm doing it because it feels good.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why are you doing it? And I heard Esther Hicks rather say this. She was like, when people ask, what are you doing? Say, being happy. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm talking about fulfilling my dreams. Well, what does that mean? Pursuing the life that I want. What does that mean? It was like being as much as I can be. It was like, just like, that's what you're doing. Like, yeah. Isn't that the goal? Don't we all want to win?
Don't we all want to win? Don't we all want to live the life of our dreams? Don't we all want to be happy?
Right. Because don't those ideas just sound good? Like that's why we love the hero in any story, in any movie, because they overcome. They go for the thing.
They go for the thing.
They go for the thing. What's the thing you're going for? Nelson Mandela said that, every person needs something that stirs their spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the idea that's bigger than you that makes you just feel alive? Or else you just end up becoming the background to somebody else's story.
Man.
Yeah.
Woo!
I told my kids
we can talk for an hour.
Yeah.
We can talk for an hour. Oh my God. We could probably do a part 2. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a note to end on. Be the hero in your own story. Don't end up being the background.
Right.
And you got to connect with the right folks. And this dude right here is one of the right folks to connect with. So I want everybody to find him on social media, send him an email. I'll have all of his info in the notes of the podcast. Man, this has been a powerful hour.
Yes.
Maybe we should rename it.
I'm surprised it was already an hour. It felt like 12 minutes.
I know. We could talk for another hour, but nobody wants to listen to a 2-hour podcast.
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you so much for being on here. Thank you. And I love what you're doing. You are an inspiration to the world. Keep changing lives. 5 million. You're going to get 5 million of them.
5 million of them. And the
5 million superheroes.
Of that, like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's the strangers that we end up making the biggest difference for. Even Jesus, like his own brothers were like, forget this dude. He sucks.
Yeah, you don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. But it's the strangers that you end up making the difference for.
Man, so true. The people you don't even know are watching.
Yeah. Because I've definitely been inspired by people that aren't even alive yet, aren't even alive anymore. Read books by people that died 300 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they had a really good point.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that because like your story, I think, is the most valuable thing that you have.
Mm-hmm. Hands down, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go write the rest of our story. We can do that.
Right. Create a
Hold
story
the
that
pen.
and it's up to you.
Yeah, we hold the pen. Let's write the rest of our story. Whew, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody, thank you. If you enjoyed this, please share it, give it a rating, give it a review. It helps the algorithms so that we can be shared with more people. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.